Hello, Ryan here, and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all of the news from the week just past. Be sure to subscribe if you like what you see, and let's get on with it. This week, as Alpha 3.15 gets closer to release, we hear more about its features, plus I share my thoughts on the current 3.15 build and why I think it's going to be the best PU build we've had, period. So before we get to the weekly news, I first want to touch upon my opinion and my experience with Alpha 3.15. Now, as of last night, CIG has fixed one of the 30Ks that was plaguing the PTU, causing a 30K to happen every 10, 20, 30 minutes, which even with this server crash recovery system, which I will speak about in a minute, was still making it a nightmare to actually test and enjoy 3.15. Now, although I am yet to try it myself, I have heard that the 30Ks are no longer every 10 minutes and people have been playing for hours. So if this is now the case, alongside the server crash recovery, I think it's safe to say that the current build, which I believe is 3.15N, is a great build to roll out to the wider audience. And I personally suspect Wave 2 or even an open PTU to release over the course of next week, with a live release not too far behind. Now, specifically, the server crash recovery is a godsend, and although I'm sure there will be the occasional unlucky timing with these heartbeats, I was playing all day yesterday, and not once did it not perfectly restore my ship with everything on board, even the weapon magazine that was accidentally dropped while I was fiddling around with my inventory, that was still on the floor. It allows you to instantly relaunch the game without needing to close the launcher and then relaunch from there, and making the ship immediately available via the ASOP terminal. Now, they did say it could take up to 10 minutes before the ship becomes available. Every time, and obviously yesterday, before we had this 30k fix, they were every 10, 20, 30 minutes. Every time I 30k'd, it worked perfectly. And to be fair, the only issues that I did have yesterday were the constant 30ks. So if that specific recurring 30k is now fixed, and alongside the server crash recovery, we are in for an incredible patch and experience. Now, with the 3.15N patch, even the inventory system is smooth, accurate, instant, and with all the new quality of life additions like the filter tabs and double tap equip ability and such, it is much more intuitive and easier to use than it has ever been. Now, is it perfect? Most definitely not, but as a stepping stone to the physical inventory, it makes a huge difference to my enjoyment in the current PU and really connects me more to my character and what I'm trying to do in the verse, allowing me to just interchange things as I want to and seeing what I look like while I'm doing it, which I do love. I also take much more care over the things I have, especially my ships, as you only have access to the ships that you have with you. Otherwise, you would have to fly back to the last location of each ship, and with having inventory persisting inside the ship that you have either bought or looted, you want to take care of that ship. You are ultimately customizing that ship to be what you want it to be, and so you don't want to just quickly claim it on insurance because you can't be bothered flying to get it. Now, healing is another feature that has matured to feel like you are more connected to your character. I am now taking more caution when I am going about my business, ensuring that I have what I need, and when I do get downed, waiting for a rescue personally feels quite fun. I know it sounds ridiculous, but knowing that someone is responding to that, they're on their way and they're going to try and help you, it has this interesting feeling to it, which is obviously connecting you to other players, but also keeping you invested in your character. Now, overall, I am having the most fun in the PU than I have had in a long time. In fact, I would even go as far as to say that 3.15 personally is pretty much the best build I have ever played. Things feel more stable and solid. Performance does appear to be much better as well. In fact, I was flying down to an underground facility yesterday, and upon landing, I noticed I had 111 FPS. Of course, it could just get progressively worse on a live server, as there are usually more players online doing more things, but there is certainly something going on to improve performance. Whether it's anything to do with the Gen 12 milestones, I don't know. I didn't think they were ready for 3.15, but hopefully we'll get more information as it goes to live. As I was saying though, 3.15 is an amazing patch. There are more missions. These missions feel a lot more stable themselves. With delivery missions being hooked into reputation, it kind of feels a lot more progressive, like you are unlocking these missions. Even though the majority of them are the same, there is in fact one new mission when you reach runner level with the delivery firms, which is a fun mission to play out, and it is very well paid. but I won't put any spoilers here. You'll have to find that out yourself, or at least watch me over on Twitch. I will definitely be pursuing that on Monday. Inventory and medical, as mentioned, although unfinished and still pretty buggy, feels sophisticated and very robust, with depth to allow those interested in pursuing the medical career to make a good living already in 3.15, and it just brings those players together, as I say. I am yet to be trolled, I'm sure it will happen. I think I've just been very lucky at this time, but for me, 3.15 feels more like a game, and more like the game that Star Citizen is intending to be, and a lot less like an alpha. I am having a blast playing, and really feel that if this keeps up with 3.15, then it is the patch that will have me wanting to play more. And even now, as I'm writing this, I just really want to jump in and play 3.15. I've been wanting to play it all day long. I was wanting to play it all day long yesterday, even with the constant 30Ks. So now that they're gone, I just want to get in and customize my ships with all these items and set up all my gear and do some missions and jump in with my org. I do hope that when it rolls out to the wider waves and eventually live, people have the same experience that I'm having now. I hope that I have the same experience that I'm having now on the PTU when it goes to live. Of course, as mentioned before, there are still many bugs. Not like it was in 3.14, but more with the new stuff. Just little things that need ironing out. But ultimately, 3.15 is a great build that I think many will enjoy, and 3.16, the end of year patch, is looking to be something truly special if it is building upon what we have in 3.15, and I am putting a video together about the potential things we could see for the end of the year, and they are very exciting. Now that's not to say that 3.15 is perfect, but overall, especially compared to previous builds, it is my favourite by a long shot, and I'm just constantly craving to play it. Anyway, I just wanted to let you all know my thoughts. Here's hoping that we are getting a live 3.15 build in the very near future, as I do think it is pretty much ready to go now. It all depends on what CIG want to get done before they release it, and as I say, I hope you all have a great experience like I'm having, but if you do want to check out my experience on 3.15, do drop by on my Twitch channel. It is linked in the description below, and I will look to get some videos out of me playing the game in the near future as well. So this week's Star Citizen Live was with Rich Tyra, who is now the Squadron 42 FPS game director, but also still covers the PU core gameplay pillar, but is now set to focus on Squadron 42, so we won't be seeing much more of him from now on, or at least until Squadron 42 is released, I guess. Anyway, this episode is all about 3.15. First question being, what are you doing to stop players running around and overdosing everyone in green zones? Now, as of the latest 3.15 build, they have now disabled the use of medical devices against other players. You can still use it on yourself, you just cannot administer anything to other players. Once they have the appropriate security measures in place, like NPC security forces capable of spawning in and arresting or shooting those causing offences, and the appropriate laws to enforce those rules, it will probably come back. While in a green zone, if you die and respawn, you don't lose your gear anyway, so there is no need to require the rescue. Now, it is a bit of a shame that they had to do this, but of course, the other systems like security, AI, reputation, and law, and so on, will come along and make it possible again. But for 3.15, I do feel it's necessary to just stop the trolling while other systems come along. Next question, does the inventory system allow players in the same party to get access to a shared inventory inside a ship? Now, not for 3.15. In any ship you go into, whether that's yours or someone else's, you have access to your own personal inventory. No one else can access that, but everyone can store items inside any ship. Of course, going forwards, they will be hooking up the inventory system to be physicalized, meaning that it will be using actual lockers and cupboards on board that ship, and what is inside of that ship will then be accessible to everyone. But as I say, not for 3.15. Next question. Currently, we can't use the inventory system for ship parts like weapons and components. Why is this? Now, basically, the vehicle stuff is not ready yet to be incorporated by the personal inventory stuff. They will be moving away from the VMA, or the Vehicle Manager app, to a Hangar Manager app that will allow players to manage all the items and gear in that hangar, which will include ship weapons and components, allowing you to swap them out, and as Richard Tyra says, maybe having an NPC come along and just swap that component out for you. Which I am very glad that they mentioned that, only in passing, but instead of having a weapon just magically swap, it could be cool to see an NPC kind of rolling that out and somehow equipping that. Also, the Hangar Manager app is on the release viewer for the first patch of next year, so Alpha 3.17, and we will be hearing more about this Hangar app and what it does first off and then later on as it rolls closer to release. So moving on, what happens to items that get stolen by other players? Does it show up in your knickknacks, or does it get moved to their new player knickknacks list? And it gets moved from your list to theirs. If they have possession of that item, it is theirs, and it shows up on their inventory, not yours. Later on, in the eyes of the law specifically, there will be physical ownership, as in who literally has it in their possession, and legal ownership. So who has the rights to possess that item? Is it stolen or is it back with you? Which will help determine the legalities behind this. Sort of a similar question, what happens to my subscriber flare, etc. if someone loots that item? Now, in 3.15, if someone steals any item from you, it is theirs, it is no longer yours, unless of course you manage to steal it back, which I would encourage. But all flare items are still account bound and will come back to you once the next patch is released. Long term, they are still very much in discussions about how they want to properly handle this. And although Richard did say that the police force, if they manage to capture the person who stole it from you, will return it to you if they manage to find it, he was purely spitballing ideas, not announcing the final version of how it's going to work. He did respond to someone on Spectrum to explain that, so don't worry about that. And I honestly expect that there will be a vendor of some sort, or multiple vendors depending on the item that you lost, where you can regain that item back if it is lost, stolen, or broken. There will be ways to get these items back in the future, and I can guarantee to you that they won't just allow you to lose them and then never be able to get them back some way. It is just undetermined at this moment, and unfortunately with Richard spitballing ideas there, it kind of got taken as a this is how it's going to work when it isn't. So I would say in 3.15, if there is flare items that you have, either don't use them for now, as you are at risk of losing them, or just be very careful with them. Of course, when the next patch comes round, they will be reallocated to you again, but keep that in mind. Anyway, next question. Finding your body after dying is nearly impossible. Will we be able to get a marker to locate it? And they say yes, they are actively trying to add this for 3.15, but they can't guarantee it will make it in, as there are a lot of bugs to fix. It is something they want, and your body is still there regardless of whether there's a marker or not, but they are hopefully going to get it in for 3.15. I really hope so, because it is a nightmare to literally find where you left off. Next question, why does falling downstairs or getting blown over by the wind kill us instead of putting us into a down state? And they say it is because of the physics. They are literally giving you massive amounts of damage, and it's registering that it is too much and you just die. As we know that if you go into a down state and then keep receiving damage, you will die. Now this is not intended and will continue to get fixed as they continue to bug fix. It was actually on stream, I think, I had a pretty cool moment as I was sprinting towards an outpost airlock to get away from the wind. And because I was sprinting, when the wind finally blew me over in the same direction I was running, I flew into the door with a lot of speed and sustained a concussion, which I actually thought was pretty epic. Of course, this is when the system works. Technically, I should receive a concussion if I'm flung into a door. Not to say that the wind at outposts are a pain in the ass, of course they are, but I thought it was quite interesting how it rolled out as it was kind of intended. It felt kind of cool. Anyway, moving on. Next question is, how are you planning to manage random deaths now that there are consequences like losing your items through no fault of your own? Now, they are continuing to try and fix all these issues that arise, but of course, with the PU, it is still an alpha. These issues will be there, but when you find these issues arise, do go and report them on as a bug on the issue council. This is the best way to get these brought to attention to CIG. Of course, they're trying to fix them as they go, but if it's happening to you, report it on the issue council, get it upvoted, and then they will address them. It is, unfortunately, the nature of the beast right now, and playing an alpha and even beta, there will be bugs. The majority of the bug fixing in-game development does happen towards the end of development, but while they are still building fundamental tech, features and so on, bugs will be there. Next question is, what plans do you have for medical facilities in Klesha, the prison? Now, nothing for 3.15. Eventually there will be a medical facility in the prisons, but right now there isn't, so just be very careful. Next question, why are gun racks handled separately to the shop storage? Now they say that's the next step of personal inventory, is to remove the local inventory so that it all becomes physicalized. So things like lockers, gun racks, cupboards, armor lockers, etc. These will be used properly and you will need to physically interact with them individually, Also, Richard does mention that the armor lockers will be able to save loadouts, which sound great. So being able to put maybe an FPS specific loadout or a hot planet exploration loadout or mining loadout. No dates for when this physical inventory is coming, but it's nice to hear that they are planning loadout options. Next question. Currently, when you loot items, you have to strip down to gather the undersuits and armor, etc. Will I be able to fit armor in my backpack? Now, they say the goal right now, so with 3.15, is to make sure that it is a believable system in terms of volume, so what you should be able to fit in where. They are taking the item's dimensions and volumes into account. In 3.15, any item made of fabric that include things like undersuits, even though their icon is very large, they should have a very small volume as it can be folded. Obviously, solid armors cannot, but it should make sense with fabric like clothing, undersuits, and other soft body items. And I did not know that. Pretty cool. When will Grimhex be a starting location is the next question. And unfortunately, right now, Grimhex does not have the same facilities that other starting locations do have. Plus, they want to make sure that if you are a new backer coming to the game, you don't choose a pirate outpost first without understanding what it is, which is understandable. They would likely offer it in the future once it has these facilities, but it's still in discussions as to the best approach. Next question, how do we prevent players combat logging, so logging out to stop others looting them? Now, what CIG want is the same as what they have for ships, where your character will persist for a while after you log out, so you cannot exploit the system. They are looking into it to see what they can do early doors. Whether it makes it into 3.15 though is not yet known. So, next question, ORISON's security is unarmed. Will they ever get armed again? And they say yes, they are fixing this right now and they will add weapons to ORISON's security guards. This wasn't intentional. Next question, do you think this was a good time to release medical and inventory systems with it being early alpha? Now, they say that these are large and complex systems and they want them out for the players to test and balance as soon as possible, just to get it into the best state while it is still an alpha. They do try to make it as polished and playable as possible with each patch, and they are spending more time each quarter now to fix the bugs for each build. Now, personally, I am more than happy for them to get these features in so that we can test and get them into the best possible state, rather than waiting closer to the release of version 1.0 and having to deal with these issues then. Next question, are there any rare items in the loot boxes? Now, there are items, they say, that cannot be found in stores, and there are also items like Squadron 42 items that shouldn't be there, but in the future there will be items that are rarer or more unique, but not for 3.15 as this is just the initial rollout. Apparently you were able to find the P8AR, which is the Squadron 42 specific rifle that they did say they were holding off for Squadron before they roll it into the PU. Also, the dedicated tractor beam and the Xi'an missile launcher were also things that you could find, but they did say that they are trying to find all these and remove them before the build goes live. So once it goes live, don't expect to find all these really crazy, unique items there. Next question, will we be able to create shareable cargo containers? Now, again, not for 3.15, but for the future, we will be able to buy boxes to store items that others can access and share. And this will come with the cargo refactor, allowing us to buy boxes of different types and load them with whatever we want. This is going to be so cool, buying these various boxes and storing our items, allowing others to access them. So much potential gameplay from this alone. And I expect the cargo refactor is going to be something we start seeing roll out for 3.16. Next question, any short-term plans to transfer or send item ownership to others? Now, this is the long-term plan, not for 3.15, and it will be likely using a different trading app that will allow us to put things up to trade and so on and so forth. But yeah, not for 3.15, but it is a part of the plan for the long term. Next question, can you explain specifically how the storage interactions will take place in the future? Now, what we have in 3.15, just to clear this up, is just a placeholder to get the inventory localized to us, to remove that magic bag of holding that we had with the Moby-Glass. Next is the physical interactions with players physically interacting with a cupboard or a locker in the world, not just hitting a button and seeing everything in that location. So basically, you will need to walk up to a locker, click on that locker, which will open that locker up and give you access and show you only what was physically placed inside that specific locker, nothing more. What we have in 3.15 is personal inventory, and it is just a stepping stone to the physicalized inventory. So following on from that, is this the final UI for inventory and looting? And no, this is the tier 0 for it. Literally the first ever implementation of looting and the UI for inventory. And it will continue to evolve until they feel it is perfect. And the final question, how hardcore in terms of survival are you planning to go? Now for survival, they want the game to be about resource gathering and managing those resources. There are elements of survival gameplay, but they are not as extreme as, let's say, a traditional survival game. Right now in the verse, it is 10 to 12 real-world hours of standing still before you need to even eat something or drink something. And the intention is to provide survival elements, but it is not a hardcore survival game. We don't need to drink and eat every 10 minutes. Hygiene, tiredness, that sort of thing will play into it, but again, these effects won't be like a hardcore survival game. And with Star Citizen, the idea is making it as realistic as possible, but ensuring that it is fun as well, so bringing it back to the point of fun. It is all about the continued progression of Star Citizen and styling it to what Star Citizen needs it to be, and as we test it and provide feedback, they will change things accordingly. So that was Star Citizen Live. Not a lot of new information to be heard, a lot of it was all just reiterations of what we already know, but it is good sometimes to reiterate those intentions, or CIG's intentions, with 3.15's features being pretty significant, so either new backers or people who haven't heard what CIG's intentions are for things like medical and inventory, knowing what they are, it's good to get that reiteration. But that was Star Citizen Live, let us move on. So also this week, we had a new lore post on Tuesday, which was taken from a previous jump point, where we learn about one of the UEE's most notorious serial killers. We had the Anvil Liberator Q&A, which I will hopefully get time to run through and break it down. Really love this ship, but I've got a lot of videos, specifically 3.15, 3.16 roadmap stuff to get out, and CitizenCon of course. And finally, the roadmap was updated, of which I have already covered in a separate video, which is linked in the description below. So that brings us to the end of the show. If you do enjoy my content, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. Also, I am able to do this thanks to my very generous patrons and channel members. If you appreciate what I do and would like to help make it even better from as little as $1 a month, all of the links are provided below.